Good morning, good morning. Hope all is well. Axel, if you can hear me, let me know. It is just me this morning. Henry will not be in attendance with us today. He's got some things going on that would put him not in front of the computer this morning, so it is just me. But we do got some good stuff to go over. Hey, Franco, not in today. No, he's not in. Good morning, everyone. We will get started in just a second. Hope everyone had a good week. Good morning. My week has been good. Just kind of just going through the swing of things, really. Nothing too crazy going on. Um, just been kind of going through the motions for the most part. Market's delivered pretty nice this week. All right, just a minute or two more and we'll get into it. I think I'm going to give up caffeine, at least do like a tolerance break on it. I'm going to try at least. It's a bad habit I have is I love caffeine. Okay, we'll go ahead and get into it. Today is October 22nd, Sunday. Going into this week, no news on Monday. On Tuesday, we do have some 9:45 red folder news. We've got flash manufacturing PMIs and flash services PMIs. So that equities open should be insightful. Probably some volatility there. And then right after that, obviously, we've got this little tiny Richmond Manufacturing Index. On Wednesday, you've got new home sales at 10 a.m. and then Powell speaking at 4:35 p.m. Note that, right? That something that when something like that happens, uh, it's good to watch, but you want to note how that could potentially deliver going into the Asian session and London session, and potentially have that new opening day gap when it closes at 5 and reopens at 6. So I wouldn't necessarily trade this with it being so close to session close, but it is something to study going into the following day on Thursday, which is when we have our quarterly advanced GDP releasing at 8:30, on top of unemployment claims at 8:30, and then you've got all these smaller durable goods, core durable goods, and advanced price indexes for the GDP. At 8:30, you have also, remember, Waller speaking at 9, and at 10, pending home sales. So a lot more news on Thursday. Just keep in mind that 8:30 a.m. GDP report. Price will get pretty volatile there. And then on Friday, we have core PCE price indexes month on month, and then a revised consumer sentiment at 10. So for the most part, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, there will be some that's where most of the volatility will be. For me, I like Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. A day like Wednesday, with Powell speaking so late in the day, price could want to potentially set up, and engineer liquidity. So that's something to just think about. Any questions on news? Or we go ahead and get to the charts? You guys are pretty good usually with that. Okay. All right. Well, then I will bring up some charts. All right. Dollar, right? So still bullish on dollar all week, obviously. Bullish on dollar, bearish on indices. Couple things to note. Look at where we closed, right? Look at where we closed this week, right? We dipped down into from really just the range of the Monday or the week of October 9th, that range from this low to this high. We closed right on the equilibrium. Note how we delivered into discount, but then kind of closed at the equilibrium. So going into this week, yeah, Axel, you can chat. You're good. Feel free to butt in. If I know you got your hand raised, so if you want to ask a question, feel free. But really going into this week, a couple things that I'm noting. Do we hold this low? And or if not, when we dip down into here, do we just test this BISI one more time and then deliver higher? For the most part, with regards to weekly closure, I'm still bullish, right? Even though we did pull into this discount, we pulled back up and closed right at that equilibrium. So on a weekly, still kind of waiting to see if we can deliver back above that weekly consequent encroachment, use that as support, and then potentially go higher, right? So that's kind of what I'm potentially expecting going into the next week or two. Two fair value gaps you're on the fence about. Yeah, I can look at the monthly for you. Which ones are you looking at? So on a monthly, at least, I will say a couple things to note. We are in this SIBI right here, and we've also created this BISI, right? But notice how this monthly candle has to close for this BISI to technically be validated. So I'm a little curious to see if we actually hold a low for the rest of the month to then create that BISI and then potentially move down into it and then go higher. Something that I just need a little bit more time to see. I'm also looking at this volume imbalance on the monthly. We've, for the most part, stayed above that, and we haven't really been that sensitive to this city right here, right? It hasn't been that sensitive, right? We pulled up into it last month, closed inside of it, dug a little bit deeper. Now we're coming back down from it, but we're not really pushing away from it. If anything, we're actually still above and inside the city. So price hasn't really been too sensitive to that so far. Last month and then November of last year. So last month, yes, this is this one right here, and then November of last year, yeah, so this one. So the, you know, my biggest focus right now is on this city right here, the November of 2022 city, because we have not traded outside of it yet. So something that I would potentially note is this low, right? Taking this low, throwing that across and seeing where that potentially stands, and kind of leaving this open for now, at least until month closes, and then we can reestablish it. But I want this to stay open for now. When you go on a weekly, you can see that that SIBI low is also inside this BISI on the weekly, right? So that's something that I want to potentially see as used as support if we're going to go higher. When you go in on a daily, though, right, going to try to keep it as simple as possible. Like I said, you know, going into here, one thing that's on my mind is this SIBI right here, right? You can see that SIBI. If you note the closure of it, right, we've wicked through it multiple times, but we still have been closing on the top half of it, right? So this daily candle closure all this week, even though we haven't really gone anywhere and we've been trading back and forth, for the most part, closure has told me that we are not willing to close below the consequent encroachment of this. So I would like to see this still maintain, right? It's just a matter of if we want to manipulate more down here to open the week, test that one more time, and then go higher, right? And then if we do get closure back above here, it's when, if and when price decides to use that as support, and then go higher. And like I said, on that weekly wick, that rejection block, you're going to want to see price once it does get over it with closure, you're going to want to see that used as support, right? And then delivering into the buy side target of 107,500, 107,400. Right, so that's really my main focus right now. This is still kind of what I see playing out. Price has not given me a reason to go bearish. Obviously, I was looking at this low. We took out that low, but really did not close below it, right? So we just kind of wick, grabbed that liquidity in the form of sell side, and then still kind of went higher. But would really like to see a shift in market structure here, right? I would want to see a failure swing and not price not go below this. And I would want to see price shift and go higher, giving us a shift in market structure here with the idea that we're going to take buy side at 107,400. Any questions there? All good, right? And then I think another thing you can kind of start to look at too is, this BISI right here, right? There's that big BISI that we're still kind of playing in, and you're kind of, maybe mark the consequent encroachment of that. So, right, if price does decide to go above that too, right, you're going to kind of want to see something like that also. So really that's my main focus, right? Whether you want to use this BISI right here or this BISI right here, just kind of watching and noting, but you can see how price is kind of just, it's not going anywhere yet, right? So we're in this kind of wait mode, even though I'm still predominantly bullish because it hasn't told me there's nothing bearish that I see here yet, even though we are in that monthly SIBI. The way we reacted in it isn't bearish to me. So I'd like to see price continue going higher. With that being said, you know, dollar hasn't really gone anywhere, right? We've kind of all last week, we just kind of consolidated, right? If you go into ES, right, what has ES been doing? It's been going lower, right? We had sell side targets. So, going into here, right, we have this BISI, or SIBI, excuse me, right? We pulled up into it, right? And then kind of stayed heavy-handed to the downside, right? So, with regards to sell side targets, right, you want to look for this, right? And now you're just kind of using these as your sell side targets, right? right? So you got sell side here, sell side here. I will note, this volume imbalance right here, right? And now we've kind of got this weekly order block right here with this up close candle. So if anything, I would want price to retrace back up into here. Right? You're going to want to see something like this. Right? Something like that, continuing going lower. Right? If you even wanted to, you could use this as a inverted BISI. Right? And I think as long as price stays above or below the consequent encroachment of this inverted BISI, I think you're still good to see prices going lower. Right? On a daily, kind of same thing. Right? You've got a SIBI right here. Right? You got a SIBI right there and a volume imbalance. You also have a breaker in here. Right? You've got a high, a low. You take out the high. We're taking out the low, even though we haven't yet with displacement. So when, even when price takes this low, right, I would want price to potentially push up into this level and go lower. Right? Something like that is what I see unfolding on ES. Any questions on ES? Very simple. If you guys saw, right, we have an immediate rebalance right here. Right, so if anything, I would want 43.40 to kind of be the highest we retrace, right? Holding this high, going lower. Any questions there? All good there? Okay. So yeah, still to the downside on ES. Like you guys have seen, talked about with myself and Henry, we've been bearish on this stuff. This week's price action should not have been a surprise to you. Hopefully, it was something that you were expecting. It's something that we've been talking about, but that's something that I would potentially utilize. I don't think that this low will hold. I think that we take this pretty early on in the week and then kind of hopefully find a retracement higher to then go lower. And you can see all of these gaps in here that we could potentially need to fill. With regards to NQ, same thing here, right? Going on a weekly, you have this CIBI. NQ just kind of, did a little bit of a higher, deeper retracement. Obviously, we were talking about Mohawks, how this wick can go through it, but look at the closure. Look at how predominantly this closed, right? It never even closed above the consequent encroachment of it. You also have this being an order block right here, right? You've got that, right? Now it's just a matter of, okay, you've got sell side. That sell side right there. And really, coming in, you're wanting to see if price can fill more of this, right? You've got an inefficiency down here. So you would want price to fill this. We want price to come down and even fill this, right? So same thing here, right? If we get a pullback, right? Just wanting to see price potentially pull back up into here and then go lower, right? Something like that on a daily. On a daily, really kind of same thing here. There's a SIBI right here. the volume imbalance right below it, right? Obviously relative equal lows, that would be my main draw going into this week. But if so, if and when we decide to take this, or if we wait, any type of pullback into here, right? Any type of pullback into there, then go lower, or if we decide to do that, right? Something like this could potentially unfold. Something like that is kind of what I'm looking for on NQ. Right? Notice how we just we reached for this, barely tapped into that institutional order flow into drill, and it remained bearish to the downside ever since. Any questions here on NQ? All good here? Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over my trade this week. And I'm going to get better about posting them in there. That's something I got to just get better at. But going into ES, so if I go on a 15-minute, since obviously this week's assignment was with regards to partials, so I traded MES, right? I traded those micros. I traded micros this week. And I will show you where I was trading, what my trades looked like. Right, so a couple things to note here. So I was trading with, I think, 10 contracts. Yeah, so I sold at 10 contracts. And really the main idea of it was using this as a breaker on a 1 minute. Right, so we have this being used as a breaker with the idea that this liquidity was going to stay open, right? We did have a high in here that we took out. So we have a low, we have a high, a low, we took out the high, we take out the low, even though there was no displacement on a 1 minute. You go to a either 2 or 3 minute, might have been a 3 minute. No, 4 minute. No, okay, I don't believe that there was a city that formed. So really just playing the breaker, right? And my stop was at this high, right? So make this red, right? And if I pull out my bid here, pull out my extensions, okay, where? All right, so if you can see, I sold here, and I actually did get stopped out. So my stop was actually a little bit smaller than that. So you can see I get stopped out there, right? And that first loss was a little over 1/4%, not a full percent. So price comes in here, I end up getting stopped out. And then when price does come and break down lower, right? I had one entry right here, which was actually a bad entry. It was a little impatient. I was using this as a breaker, right? And I had a bad entry here, but got in with 10 contracts again, and then added an extra 2 after we had made this high, right? And my stop was more so right here, right out a little bit above this. I didn't want price to go above this SIBI right here. So stop is just above that. Right there. Right, and then you can see I have my targets right here. But where am I taking partials? Right, so obviously you can see there's a SIBI too. But I'm kind of watching this SIBI and then this breaker. Where are my targets? Well, I have a partial right here. Right, I have a partial right here. That's where that is right there. Sold two. I also have a partial in this BISI right here. You can see price fields there. And then I also had a partial, I believe it was at one of these lows. It was at this low right here. Right? And then my overall terminus was right here. Right? So you can see I had 12 contracts, took off two right there, took off two right there, took off two right here, took off two right here before getting stopped out at break even right here. Right? So I was able to recover my loss, right? And actually, I don't even think I fully recovered it, but I was able to mitigate enough, and I was done for the day. Um, so, uh, kind of sloppy trading on my end this week, but like I said, and really the main focus is understanding how to mitigate it, right? I took a very small loss, and then I was able to recover what I felt I could within the assignment, right? Making sure and showing you guys how crucial partials are, right? Because if I would have just held to my terminus, right, you can see price wasn't ready to take this, right? We overall engineered this sell side liquidity. Price pulled up higher, ended up sweeping these highs. And if you can remember, I was tweeting about 43.58, which was my main area where I wanted to see price go. We ended up playing there, but then we got some pretty crazy price action when Powell started talking on the lunch hour. But then obviously we were still able to obviously deliver lower. So really just bad timing on my part. Kind of, I would say, sloppy execution also. Kind of was just going through the motions, and that's kind of the type of trading you get when you're not fully focused. But I still was able to mitigate what I needed to and kind of walk away for the most part unscathed in the market. But you know, that's just kind of what you get some weeks, right? Um, but overall, those were my trades this week. Any questions on those before I? Okay. Why would those equal highs be protected? That's a good question. So the reason why I assumed that they would be protected was because price, really I was looking at this price action right here, right? This price action right here, right? Understanding all of this is still here. We kind of failed, right? So that showed me a weakness, right, in ES. If price was going to take those highs, it would have done that, but then it came all the way back down and collapsed through that low. That's something that made me believe that we were going to hold those. I had originally thought that they were going to be taken, and you can see later in the day, they did get taken. In the time in which I was watching price, and I saw price go back up there, it didn't want to take them here, right? Preferably, I would have liked price to actually come a little bit higher and then go lower, but it didn't do that. But then once we had delivered below this low, right? Once we delivered below that, I assumed that those were going to get left open because there already was some liquidity already taken right here. Does that make sense? Yeah, and a lot of that was time of day. I don't trade the lunch hour, so I was just trying to, um, I was trying to trade prior to Powell speaking, and that's kind of this is the behavior that you can get when you try to do that before something like that happens. So um, was kind of unable to really capture anything there, right? Really, most of this trade that I took, yes, it was a winning trade. Yes, I made money, but a lot of it was just to mitigate this initial loss, right? I got in, I had kind of a terrible execution here, and my stop placement, obviously, you can see, was just a little bit higher, um, or should have been a little bit higher. So, that's the thing, right? So, I got stopped out right there. If it was just a tick or two higher, right, my stop would have never gotten hit and I would have had an easier trade and not had to mitigate a loss. But it happens, right? It happens. So, um, you know, just having these cells get this loss back, right? There's going to be days where um, you just go into loss. There's going to be days where you get a loss and you mitigate it. And then there's going to be days where, um, you know, you just get straight profit, right? That was not a day for me where I was actually getting profit, but this is good to show you guys that, you know, partials are so key because notice how, I'm just slowly eating away at those selling these two contracts, right? And I didn't even fully get, I don't believe I fully even got, uh, actually, yeah, I think I was able to actually come out and profit a little bit, only not even a quarter of a percent. Um, but overall, it is what it is, and I try to stress it. I can't stress this enough when I say like you're better off surviving, right? Some trades are just gonna, some days you're just gonna need to survive, right? And this is how you survive, right? Everything was there besides my timing, right? Management wasn't where it needed to be. My timing wasn't where it needed to be, and you know, if I would have waited for the PM session, right? Obviously, a lot cleaner, a lot, this is very high resistance. Look at all the consolidation. Look at how price, besides this 1015 to 1030 run, besides that, price didn't really go anywhere. It was very hard. You had some seek and destroy in here. Price was just consolidative and it really had nowhere to go. Um, we go higher. Powell starts talking. You get that seek and destroy template. And then, letting price trade into that 130, right? You can see like right in here, right, where that PM macro starts. All right, look at that path of least resistance, right? Low hanging fruit. Price does not really hang around too long and it starts delivering in those objectives, right? So really biggest takeaway for me is, the time and day in which I was wanting to trade did not line up with when price wanted to actually trade where I wanted it to. I was bearish on it. I had my sell side liquidity lined out. All that stuff was correct on my end, right? The bias was correct. Really, the same areas in which I was wanting to enter were correct. It's just the timing was off. That's why you can do everything in your power, but sometimes it's you have to emphasize that it's time and then price. It's not price then time. Price is crucial, but time is everything, right? Time is everything. And that's why the first thing we always do is go over those news events because if you are not in tune with that, yes, you can go and try to find trades. And the only thing that saved me here was partials, right? If I would have held to my terminus down here, it got a couple ticks away and then came all the way back, right? That happens. That's going to happen. That's why we want to stress to you guys that partials are good. If you need to trade the micros because it will allow you to take more partials, right? If I would have been trading the regular E-mini, I might have gotten a partial or two, but I don't think I would have been able to recover my loss the way I was, right? Because I had so many partials on just this tiny little move down, right? So that's some takeaways right there, right? Partials are so key. Time of day is so key. Um, you know, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure if you're not taking those into consideration. Um, uh, I don't really look at SMT. I don't really look at SMT for entries, but I do look at SMT with regards to just trade setups in general. So like Thursday at 9 o'clock, I come back over here, and I come here, right? So these are these same highs. You can see how in Q, NQ actually took the highs in here, in and around here. So that could be some SMT right here. I don't believe, I wonder, hold on, let me see if that's, let me make sure that's the same time. Yeah, so you have a little tiny bit of divergence right here, right? You can see how price takes the high right here and doesn't take the high right here, right? So there's a little bit of divergence. And that's another reason why I was able to get, to me, I saw that as ES potentially being the weaker of the two. But either way, it didn't matter. Even though I got this small, short-lived run, it didn't matter because once noon hit, stuff hits the fan, and you know that's just kind of what happens. So that's something that I use, but I don't really use them for entries at all. Okay, so now I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna look at your guys' trades. All right, so obviously the goal was to practice taking partials. We wanted you guys to trade your personal model, but we wanted at least 3 areas to take partials, 2 partials and 1 terminus. And obviously you're welcome to take more. We're let you know that it's probably better to trade micros. That's why you guys still be trading micros, and everything's the same here, right? Everything, if you're in profit, risk 0.5%. If you win your first trade, stop. Also note on that last trade that I took, notice how I didn't risk a full 0.5%, right? That first trade was under 0.5%. You don't always have to do that, right? Based on everything that was going on, I wasn't as focused as I needed to be. I'm very quick to just not risk what I usually risk just in some certain conditions, whether that be my conditions inside trading or conditions outside trading. Um, and that takes experience to know actually that, but you don't always, just because it says risk 0.5%, you don't have, that's just telling you that's the most we want you to risk. But if it's a day where you don't really feel comfortable or just stuff isn't aligning like you really, really want it to, but you still see trades, feel free to lower this, right? That never hurts you. Alrighty, so I am trades. Had a rough week in the markets. I did wait for Monday and Tuesday to play out, and we got the SMT at the highs on Tuesday. The stronger pair NQ failed to match the high by ES that confirmed my short bias. However, my timing was completely off and poor execution as well. 2% is a lot to lose in a week. Alrighty, so obviously he's aiming for previous day's low. He's got a little tiny sibby. He said he went short, targeting the previous day's low, trailed my stop way too soon and got stopped out. Chased price after breaking the low without real displacement and got stopped out again. The hurry to move my stop to break even cost me 2 losing trades, which could have been a break even trade. So obviously you're in here. Price comes in here, right? And yes, just too soon on moving your stop. Even though obviously you probably would have gotten partial right here. You know, I think the clear thing, and you already mentioned it, right? There was not any displacement, right? Even though all this stuff sets up, um, you know, understanding time of day, week of time of day of week, all that good stuff. And then even over here, right? You got back in. This is a revenge / frustration trade. Thought we would go for buy side liquidity and fill new day opening gap. However, my bias is still lower prices. Even if we go there, I should let it go without me, especially when I just took 2 losses. I should have been done for the day. Yeah, I mean, it speaks for itself, right? That's something that as a trader you have to fight, and you can see that you switched biases, which is fine, but you want to understand what your higher time frame bias is, right? And know that even in my example, right, I got stopped out, I went short, got stopped out. Being short was in my higher time frame directional bias, and when I got stopped, I still went short on my second trade. I still, it takes a lot for me to go against my higher time frame balance and switch on a trade like that. So right here, a Friday AM session anticipating the classic sell of day after a Thursday expansion on the daily chart, right? So obviously you have this to be right here. And I think, you're already noting it right here, right? Your stop loss. Your stop loss was a little too short. I like the idea of where you're putting your stop loss, but you have to note this too, right? And that's an area where this would have been a better day to actually go back in. I know that everything happening prior probably subconsciously told you to not go back in because of what you did early in the week, and that's just the way it's set up. But this would be an area where everything's fine here. You can still put your stop loss here, but if you get stopped out, right, when you see price react here, how sensitive it was, right, you can still get in with this back being at your high after seeing how it fills this, right? And then you can go short again, and you can see you would have gotten the trade. But like I said, your prior decisions in the market earlier that week, revenge trading, all that stuff, trading out of frustration, causes you, when you go back in the market, to not necessarily have the confidence to do that, right? Because you're feeling like you're kind of taking the same route. But either way, you took the loss and you didn't kind of spiral there. So, obviously you even note too, like I could have waited for the 10 a.m. hour, which offered great entries, but I wanted to sell at or above midnight open, and that's perfectly fine, right? That's totally fine. Like I said, just a little too short, right? Just a little too short. Even if you wait for that 950 macro, that 950 to 1010 macro, you're able to get in, right? Because you can see right here, right? This would have been the optimal trade right here, because price has already came up here, done the destruction, ran some opposing internal liquidity. You can see the sensitive behavior based on this SIBI. Price comes all the way down, closes, has one up closure candle, fails to go higher or even touch the SIBI. Price immediately kind of engulfs it, comes back down, and then price touches that initial SIBI that you were looking at, right? So imagine this entry right here, right? Instead of having your stop loss right there, having it at this high, right? Close though, very close, not far off. On NASDAQ, right? So you obviously have price retracing back to a short-term premium of an implied dealing range, right? You've got this stuff going on in here. Your initial stop loss is here, right? And I think another thing is just the trailed stop, right? And it looks like it's not even, you get in this trade, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Yes, like 20 minutes in and you trailed your stop. I would go back and watch my live trade session and just see how long it took me to trail my stop, right? And yes, there's a rhyme and reason where you would have wanted to trail your stop, but it's important to note how late you're trading in the session, right? Notice how late you're trading in the session here, right? And this is good to note too, though, right? You saw the short, you were tempted to take it, but you were already down, so you didn't. But, I think if you would have just been a little bit more patient on any of these sells and kept your initial stop loss for longer, right, you would have gotten out of this, right? You would have gotten out of this high resistance.
In
So
the middle of the trade, Carson, I was confused why price was taking so long to hit previous week low, because we had also the other previous week low below it. So I was expecting it to trade down there. I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I think where I messed up is that pyramid entry is what made me trail my stop.
Mhm.
And that pyramid entry came way deep into discount, which is I'm already entering the move kind of late. So I shouldn't be, yeah, right where your curse is.
Yeah.
That's where I pyramid one more. And that what I think messed me up. I was completely fine with this trade. I was confident. But at this point, after I pyramided one more, the risk was just too high to keep it at the initial stop.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think that's exactly that, right? That pyramiding entry, it forces your hand to do something, right? You feel the need to kind of shorten that because obviously you're now adding risk. You know, I think if you would have, if you would have maybe taken a partial when price took this low, it would have been, a little bit easier to maybe pyramid here and still have a stop high up here. But even if you had your stop up here, because I could see myself potentially putting a stop right here, and even then this would have tagged it. So this is tricky, and I will say that there's times where you know if it is on a Friday and you're close to this previous week's liquidity, right? It's so hard because you're like, it's almost like you're running out of time. But you kind of just have to be super confident in the fact of, yes, you're this close to the draw on the liquidity. Price probably will run it before the week's over. So with that, what's it gonna do? Like all this, like if you're a seller in here, right, you're very antsy, right? It's like the week's almost over, price is about to close, and you're just kind of trying to just get there, get there, get there. And there are a lot of instances, and it's a good study, when price runs weekly liquidity at the very end of the session on Friday, it really does it within the last 15 minutes. Like it'll wait because if you think about everyone that's participating, um, it's super easy for the market to test your patience when you're that late in the session and in the week. And so when it does stuff like this, it's gonna do exactly what it did, right? It's gonna come and kind of take these internal highs, and in here it's gonna kind of just chop and be very consolidative. Um, And really, I think the main focus is just patience, right? Maybe not pyramiding that, even though you see it, and tape read it. Um, and then, I don't even think, you go to break even here, right? Because I think even here, if you go break even, you're still managing very quickly based off of something like it's something that I think it's this fine line of patience and understanding. I think I probably would have got it stopped out here too. It's even um, with or without the pyramid entry, because even tape reading this, seeing how price closed right here and then came all the way back up, that's very difficult because as a trader, when I see that, right, I usually like to have my stop in and around 3 PD arrays, right? And your first PD array could be this, your second PD array could be this, your third PD array could be the consequent encroachment of this, right? So even if you had your stop here or even at this high, you're still going to get tagged here. So it's a tricky trade for sure. It's definitely a tricky trade. But the biggest thing to note on it too, though, is all this stuff, right? The whole idea is good, right? The bias was good, the draw on liquidity is good, all that's good. Really what it is just, okay, in this, what can I take from it and understand really in reality, how can I not press the button here and wait for this, right? Because this is the easiest trade right here, right? And I think it's hard because when you're looking over here, there's really nothing to build from it. The only thing that I could say is if you took this low and you extend it out in time and seeing how price doesn't necessarily go below it, I would have preferred to see price close below this low, right? Because once price closes below this low, it's this candle that does that, right? And then at that point, you're like, okay, well, does it actually give me a pullback from there? It might just keep going and I might miss it, but I'm a lot more confident now with this SIBI, with how price already played over here, to just go in right here in a sell with my stop right here, with the idea that price is now more so willing to run that weekly liquidity. But this is a very tricky, very, very, very tricky trade for sure. Stuff like this it's meant to do exactly what it did. And I can't say that I would have managed it any better, right? When you get to those end of the week, end of the session Fridays, price can get very, very tricky. And I've seen multiple times where Michael has live streamed on a Friday late in the session, and he talks about how price is very keen to wait and test your patience and outweight yourself, and you can very easily be susceptible to getting in these entries, which are ideal entries, which all make sense, but you can see price just isn't ready yet. And then all of a sudden you get to the last 15 minutes of the session, and then it's just there. It's super easy, right? It comes in, fills it, goes lower, right? Even in here, right? There's one right here too, right? So it's hard. It's hard, and that's why I try my best to not touch it that late in the session. I usually never trade Friday PM sessions because of this, whether or not liquidity has been taken or not, because everything lines up. Even the time technically lines up. It's high resistance liquidity. You're in a high resistance liquidity condition. The market is going to wait until everyone in the market has kind of already been beaten and doesn't have the patience or time, and just within the next final 10 minutes of the session, it's just going to easily go there. So very tricky, very hard, but definitely a lot of learning to be done here. Okay, next one.
Also, one last question.
Uh-huh.
Do you have like a certain percentage that you stop after losing? Because obviously, even if your bias is correct and everything is right, you can see like the poor execution and just not it really in the zone. Do you have like a certain percentage that you stop right after?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think it depends. I kind of going into each week, kind of on after Monday, and it's not always the same. It depends on how committed I want to be to the market that week. I think I make up my mind very early on how committed and how much I'm going to trade. I there's some weeks where I'm very committed to trading. Um, I will be okay with potentially losing 2%. I don't think I would ever go uh, past 2%. I think 2% is definitely the max if I'm that most if I'm like that committed to trading that week. And then there's some weeks where I'm not. I know that I'm going to be a little bit busier outside the markets. I know that there might be things going on in the markets that make me not want to necessarily trade it as much. And at that point, I might cut that in half and be willing to risk 1%. But I think it's around that 1 to 2% range where I'm really kind of uh, meeting my threshold and saying, okay, you know what, I'm done for the week. And sometimes I'll be willing to risk 2%, and I can very easily tell that that week is, even though I'm super committed to trading that week, I can tell that that week just isn't going to be my week. And being aware of that earlier on, just maybe the way I'm trading, just maybe the way the market's trading, I'm very quick to just say, actually, you know what, after that day, even though I wanted to be really, really committed, um, I might be down 1% on the day. When I go back in on maybe a day or two later, um, you know, adjusting my risk to the point where, um, you know, I'll give myself one more chance and maybe risk 1/4% and really max it out at like a percent to a quarter, or 1% and 1/4. Um, but I think 2 is fine. 2 is very recoverable. I wouldn't try to go past 2, at least for myself. I don't think 2% on a week is bad. I think it's completely normal. I think it's definitely, um, you know, you wouldn't want to maybe go past that. Then it's just going to take a little bit longer to recover it. But 2% on a week, I think, is perfectly healthy, and I think it gives you enough room to get it back. Not necessarily all in one trade, but it's something that's easily attainable with getting that back within 2 weeks, right? You try to sit there and you try to get 1/2%, you have 2 trading days a week and you're really just trying to get 0.5% a day, that's, of 1% each week, you can mitigate that loss, very easily. So I don't think you're too far gone with just losing the 2%. I think it's fine. Okay, Axel. Here goes my submission for the week. Been a while, I know. The draw was the daily low with a couple partials sprinkled in at points of liquidity. The model was a 2022 mentorship unicorn silver bullet with US 500 S&T. Sorry, I forgot to mark it. I didn't even pay attention to the model till the end. I just saw a clear draw and a breaker with fair value gap. Plus, the XY price action looked like it was going to go higher after taking sell side liquidity. I like it. On the 15-minute, feel free to correct me on that. Emotions going in and throughout the trade were neutral. One thing I wish I would have done differently is risk more. I didn't really calculate the risk. Had the same one from my last trade. I was more focused on my main account. I actually took the trade on my main account first and then remembered I needed to do the exercise as well, so my apologies for that. Initially, I risked 5, taking out 2 every partial and leaving 1 from terminus at 60 handles. I should have done triple that. Not the right way to think. It's okay. I wouldn't think like that. Not a good way to think, because next trade you're going to try to triple it. So no, you risk what you risk and you accept the risk, and that's fine. You don't try to say, oh well, I could have done this, I should have done that. Doesn't not a healthy mindset to have as a trader. Even though this is the trade that passed me in my funded challenge, the emotion of happiness and excitement at the time fizzled out. Not even a minute after my TP was hit. Don't really know how to feel about that. I'm going to have some steak today. There you go. I managed the trade differently for my challenge if anyone is interested in that. My draw on liquidity was Wednesday's low, or no, Wednesday, 4th of October, 7 a.m., 1 hour busy, but the foundation was still the same. If anyone is interested, I can post that as well. My terminus was 100 handles, and that is currently still trading at 160 handles as I type this. So you've got the SIBI right here. Obviously, price traded in and around that 5-minute SIBI. You're using this as a breaker with the SIBI. Very, very excellent. Very good trade because you waited for all this to pan out. And entry was right before it left. Great trade in here. I like that. You can see that he's adding that DXY confluence. Price took out the slow, is trading higher. Very nice. Higher time frame entry, same thing in here. Very good trade, Axel. I think the only thing I want to note in here, I think your trades and technicals are very fine. They're great. Same trade. I like the way you use the stop loss at the high of the breaker and a SIBI. I would just say, really, the only thing I would say is just this, right? One thing I would have done differently is risk more. Not true. I don't think you should have risked more. I think you risked exactly what you wanted to risk. I think if you actually sit there and you take a little bit more attention to calculating the risk, maybe you just decide that. But I encourage you to start really defining your models and your setups and rank them A plus, A minus, B plus, B minus, C plus, C minus, and have that, how you grade that trade setup is also how much you risk, right? So if this was an A plus setup that you really, really liked, yes, you should have risked more, but that's on you. But is it an A plus setup, right? Is that what is the criteria for that A plus setup? Because in reality, you risked what you risked, and you cannot. Once you sign that and you enter in the trade, that's what you're going to get, right? That's what you're going to get. You know what you're going to lose. You know what you're going to primarily going to make, and you have to be okay with that. You cannot have this after the fact. Oh, I should have done this. I should have done that, because now you're taking that into your next trade, and no matter what the type of setup is, whether it's a C plus, B minus, whatever case is, whatever that setup is, you're now expecting to risk more, right? And it's a trade by trade basis based on what you're risking. That's the only thing that I would critique in here. I think the technicals are fine, but I think something mentally here needs to, that mindset needs to flip, right? Yes, you're focused on your live account. I 100% agree, but either way, just like you should in your live, right? You need to understand you do not want to have this mindset of, oh, I should have risked more. Oh, I should have risked more. That's a gambler's mentality. Other than that, I think it was a great trade. Alrighty. Yep.
Just a quick one. The reason why I say I would have rather risked 15 instead of 5 is because I only saw by my first partial that I I wasn't gonna make more than $300 on that trade, right?
Okay.
So
It was very light.
for 60 handles, I figured, you know, I should have paid more attention to that. I did think it was an A+ setup. Like
Yeah,
again, the
it's a
confluences
great
were all
setup.
there, plus the higher time frame bias. That was my
Mhm.
main trigger on it. And
And I believe I and that makes sense too. And I would be lying if I told you that I don't do the same thing too. Um,
Mhm.
uh, and it's just something that you kind of have to. You kind of want to live. You kind of live with it. It's like, you know what? Uh, you know, next time, yes, right. Next time, I'm going to be keen to it. But next time doesn't always necessarily mean the next trade, because you might not get a setup like this, uh, next week or whatever the case is, or the next trade you take, it might not be as much. So just keep it in the back of your mind. I mean, it makes sense, obviously, and um, you know, I can tell that obviously it was a very good trade, very very low resistance, and when something like that happens, the first thing that you think of is, um, I should have risked more. But I also ask people all this all the time whenever they have big trades and they ask me, how to cope with it or whatever. One of the first things I ask them is, did you follow your rules? Right?
Mhm.
Because it feels really good when you have a really good big trade, knowing that you followed all your rules. But there's this guilty conscience that could linger if you just risked more than you know you should have. Right? Yes, you won a trade and you made a lot of money, but you know deep down that you probably shouldn't have risked that much. Right? And that's something that's just person to person basis, right? Based on who you are as a person, what your account size is, all that stuff is different.
Right.
But it's something that you really want to know. Like, I think it feels a lot better knowing, okay, well, and you probably could have risked more and still followed all your rules with your risk and all that stuff. I think all that stuff is fine. But I try to tell people all the time, right? The best thing you can do, and one of the most harmful things you can do actually, is when you have a trade and you have a great trade pan out and it's a big trade, 60 plus handles, 50 plus handles, and you just are so dialed in on it, and it's a great entry and great exits. Um, Ensuring that you actually followed your rules. Yeah, risk could have been higher, but did I follow my rules? Right? Because when you flip that and you have a trade like that and you risk more, it's you risk more than you should have at least. It's very easy for that ego to get in the way, and it's actually harmful for your next couple trades because now you're just setting this false reality, and you're not really kind of playing risk. But I think it's a great trade.
I will say, I will admit that for my main account, I did risk 1%,
Mhm.
and for those 60 handles, I did make 2%.
Good.
So
That's
as
great.
I
That's
as that
perfect.
main account was going, and I was looking at the exercise,
Mhm.
I really felt bad about uh, not paying proper attention to the exercise, and
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't feel
being
bad at all.
respectful.
Your live account comes first. Your live account comes first, and I speak
Mhm.
for everyone. This is simply just a training exercise, right? And your live funds, when and where you choose to play them in the market, and you're in the market, I expect you guys to be full-fledged focused on that. Do not let a training exercise on demo, don't let it affect your trading live. So do not feel bad about that at all. I think that that's something that predominantly needs to be your main focus. This is here to just, whether you don't want to trade your live account or you want to just continue to sharpen your trading, that's fine. But don't let it fog up or take you away from the main task at hand, which is your live trading. And I will say congrats on passing your funded account. Keep on doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Carson. Thank you for everything, man.
Yeah, not a problem. Alrighty, Mr. Allen. Wednesday AM, 50-minute. I don't know if that's 15 minutes or just fit on a 15-minute. Higher time frame ES, you had a bearish order block and DXY going up was the reason for the ES short, but it was too soon. Hindsight shows me I was ultimately right. I took a second trade with the same idea, but with what looked like a small purge on liquidity also happened. Also, trailing stops are love slide hate. They save you from big losses, but sometimes they take you out before the eventual terminus. Just something I noticed during these exercises. Frustration, but safety first. Ultimately, I should just suck it up and move on. So here, looking into this, actually, I think you posted a picture down here. Okay. Um, so yeah, I think that a lot of stuff going into this week, even for my sake, a lot of trades just trickier market conditions, right? We're starting to get a little bit of that high resistance, and I think that leads to why the the dollar hasn't necessarily gone higher, even though we're waiting for it to go higher, and that can cause for ES has still been going lower, but with dollar not really moving the way we want it to, even though it's not going against what we want it to, it can cause for these high resistance things. So I can see that you're in here, you're trading off some civvies, trading off some order blocks, and first trade you can see stop was a little too tight. That's perfectly fine. And then you can see over here, it looks like you were able to take some partials, I believe. You sold right here. I believe you were able to take some partials in here and move to break even. But like you said, I mean, it's frustrating, yes. But yeah, safety first, always, right? You're trying to survive, and you can see overall, yeah, you were able to at least, I think, I'm assuming this is your first loss, and you were able to mitigate some of it. You didn't get all of it back, but that's fine. You're not supposed to get it all back at once, right? That's why we say take some partials, right? Even though you had a loss, you ended the week on wins, right? You ended the week on some wins, some minor wins that gives you some breath and some confidence going into the next week, right? You ended it on a good note, even though it's not where you want to be. You still ended it on a good note. You're still above your account balance, all that stuff, right? Overall, I think you're good. I think it's this week was a tricky week for sure. A lot more high resistance with regards to dollar not going where it needs to go, and that's going to start to show you guys, right? The best times you can trade is when dollar is clearly going in one direction and ES is clearly going in the other direction. That's where you get low resistance, right? We had some high resistance not because ES wasn't going anywhere. ES went lower, but internally, when you get inside on the smaller time frames and you're watching it, it's a lot harder and a lot more high resistance because dollar hasn't gone higher yet, right? So you have to kind of keep that in the back of your mind. It got me, it got Ismail, it got Alan, and that's just part of it. And that's why, like you said, safety first. That's why you can go and trade those conditions, but figure out how to survive and mitigate it, right? And I think you were able to do so. So I think overall it is a win for you. And it looks like right now Axel's the only one that kind of had a pretty easy going week. Alrighty, Miss Kate. Alrighty, after immediately bouncing off of Friday's low at around 9:55, I thought we could potentially have a reversal in this area. As we approached 10 a.m., I began looking for an entry after we barely closed above the breaker. I took a long with 10 contracts right as price dipped back into the breaker. There was also SMT with ES, which had added confluence to my trade. Before, pretty calm as I knew that the sweep of the daily low could herald a deeper retracement, if not a reversal. During, I felt pretty good since price went my way fairly quickly. I didn't manage the trade as well as I would have liked, though. I let go of the majority of the contracts a little bit early. Wanted to be at 1 to 2, but made an error in my calculations. That's fine, it happens. As long as you're aware and know what to fix. After, pretty happy with the trade. Yes, price continued to move up for 150 points after my terminus, but I'm still proud of the way I was able to hold to the last contract for 50 plus points. Looks like Cat did a pretty good trade. Why is this? Okay, there we go. All right, yeah. So obviously we have a high, or we've got a low, a high. We take out the low. We take out that sell side liquidity on the daily. We come higher. You can see once we came back above this, she's using these up close candles as a breaker. There is a tiny, tiny, tiny BISI right here that she's also using. She's buying in right there. Very nice tight stop with the breaker low. I love those trades. Those are almost all my trades too. I like having the stop at the breaker if it's clear. You can see she took nine contracts right here off, right? Giving her that 1.6 risk reward, paying herself 1 to 3, and then holding to that buy side liquidity, right? Giving you that 1 to 7. Very great trade. Very, very good trade. I like how you're very quick to take partials, right? 50 points on NASDAQ is not a lot, but for you as a trader, that's a lot, and holding it for that long is a lot. And that's why I think stuff like this is beneficial, because you can see, yes, it was very quick to it, very low resistance, It was almost just right into where you wanted it to go immediately. Very good trade. I don't really see anything wrong with it. I think you held from where you wanted to hold, took partials where you needed to take partials, and I don't see anything wrong with it. Right? You went break even after your first partial. Price never even wanted anything to do with retracing, and it just did what you wanted it to do. Very good. I'm not surprised. Very good. Very good. All right. I will go over this week's exercise. I think you guys will like this. All right. So this week's assignment is a little different than the ones in the past. There will be no trades taken this week. We have given you 10 straight weeks of assignments. So this week we really want you to do some deep reflecting. In the comments below, we want you guys to let us know the following, right? Where do you stand right now, right? What's your total percent gain or loss since the inception of the account? So looking back 10 weeks, right? Where are you sitting this week, right? Where does that account balance stay? After looking at that and reflecting and going through all your trades, right? It's been 10 weeks. It's pretty cool. What are 3 things that you learned from the first 10 weeks of exercises, right? It could be technically, it could be psychologically, but what are 3 things that you learned just actually doing these and participating in these week after week? What are some things that have really stood out to you by doing those exercises, right? With no real money attached, just doing these very specific training exercises. What are some things that you learned? Also, what are 3 things outside of trading that you believe is affecting your trading, right? So as you reflect on the past 10 weeks of trading, what are 3 things that you think might be affecting you outside of trading, right? Or that's outside of trading that is affecting you in your trading, right? That's something that I think that not a lot of people think of, but what are some things that are going on outside of trading that you believe is actually affecting your trading? And then from there, what are 3 things that you intend to change to better your trading, right? After looking at all your trades in hindsight, looking in and going through and seeing all of them, what are some things that you believe you could do better going into the next 10 weeks to better your trading? And then what are 3 limits that you want to potentially test in your trading going forward, right? What are some things that you really want to see if you can kind of test your threshold and push, whether it's holding a trade, whether it's less trades, more trades, whatever the case is? What are some limits that you want to test going forward? And just kind of give us a thorough journal of that. You know, I'm going to do it. Henry will do it. But, you know, as I look back, and I'll even share my screen for a second. So as I look back on my trading, even here, right? As I look back on all these trades, right? We all started on the same date. We all started, for the most part, all of us did. We all started on the same day, and we all started with the same account balance, right? And as I look through all these trades, right, what are some things that I can take away? What are some things that I want to change? What are some things that I want to test? And what are some things that I think that I did really good that I think I want to carry with me, right? And I want to say the first thing to note, obviously, yes, you know, 10%, a little under 11% in 10 weeks is very good, right? That's 1% a week, right? We say that all the time. We hear Michael talk about it. You hear all this stuff, 1% a week. It's not that hard to manage, right? I've never, you know, you've seen what we've been risking week after week. I'm risking 0.5%, 1/4%, shooting for, you know, it averages out 1% a week, right? This is something that, this is where I really want you guys to start to think about is, you know, I didn't get this. I didn't get 10% in 2 weeks. I didn't get it in a week. I didn't get it in a day. It took 10 weeks. And if you look at all my trades, it's not all green. It's not all green, right? There's red in here. But I want you to really look at how I respond, right? How do I respond when I take my loss, right? Notice the size of the loss and notice the recovery following it, right? We're always going to make mistakes. We're always going to have that human side of us. We're always going to have the wrong read. We're always going to be trying to trade in an area where the time doesn't line up, right? You're not going to be perfect in any of this, right? But the reason why I was able to gain the 10% in 10 weeks is one, I understand myself as a trader. I know when I can trade. I know when I can't really trade. I know how to respond following a win. I know how to respond following a loss. I understand the risk and all that stuff. And, there's things in here, mistakes that I made on some days that I'm going to point out too when I go in and journal mine, that are just simple errors, rudimentary errors that I still make because I'm human. And this stuff takes a lot of different things to consider, right? You're considering all these different things at once and all these lining up at once. But you can tell there's times where, I definitely had an edge in the market, right? You've got $1,000 here, $15 here, $1,500 there. You've got 1,200 here, 1,100 here, 1,800 here, 1,400 here. But then, those are areas out of all these trades. It's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 trades, 7 trades maybe, where I really had I really felt like I had an edge in the market, right? And I utilized that. I strained that for as long as I can. I got as much juice out of the lemon as I possibly could on those days. That's not every day, right? And then there's times like this past week where you can see really it's just surviving, right? I didn't have my edge. I did not have my edge, but I understand the game of risk management enough to be able to survive. And then there's times where, I go on a little bit of a losing streak and I lose here and I lose there. But the recovery, right? I lose 500 right here, right? Once that's mitigated, I stop, right? You can see on this day, the 13th and the 13th, right here, I lose 500. I was able to get that back in one trade. I stopped, right? Same thing here, right? I started the day great with a trade, up 0.25%. I gave it back, then I lost, and then I was fortunate enough to actually stick with my my trading plan. I was still within risk, and I was able to mitigate it and a little bit more because I felt like my edge was a little bit sharper that day, right? Same thing here, right? Lost 0.5%, right? Mitigated that right away. I'm not trying to overshoot anything throughout my, when I have these losses. And this is why I wanted to do this stuff, is because with 6 years of experience, stuff like this is, even though it is demo, it's good for you guys to see this because, you might still be down on the account. You might be right around break even. You might be a little bit in profit. How do you get to a point where you're looking back 10 weeks and you're exactly where you want to be, right? So even using me, right? And don't play a game of comparison, but using the trades that I've taken and the way I've managed it, what are some things that you could do differently, ways that you could potentially fix certain things, right? Is it the amount of trades? Is it the duration of trades? Is it the risk per trades, right? There's so many things that you can go in and now go in and reflect, because in reality, 1% a week, you'll be great. You'll be fine, right? And over time, depending on whatever the account balance is, that gets bigger and bigger and bigger as you grow as a trader. But it's something that when I wanted to do these training exercises, it wasn't just, hey, watch me, I can trade. I want to show you guys this. I wanted to show you guys over a period of time, me doing the same exact assignments you guys are doing. I wanted to show you guys that you can actually grow this stuff. And this is all with regards to exercises. But once you it gets even better when you have your own model and your own rules and you're following all this stuff and you're not just given an assignment every week and you got to try to find that stuff. We're trying to do that to open up your mind to all aspects of trading, whether it be technical or psychological, getting you guys used to holding trades, getting you guys used to taking partials, seeing what that does for you. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's not about the number. We weren't doing this for the account balance, right? We're doing this to show you guys how to trade, not just for a week, not just for a month, right? We're showing you guys how to you know, handle loss and handle profit, right? You didn't see me, every time I went up, I didn't go right back down and give 75% of it back, right? If there was a curve that you could look at on the account, it's slowly, my equity curve is slowly just always going higher. And yes, there's losses in here, right? So just something to think about going into this week. Tape read this week. If you guys want to submit some tape readings, that's fine. Just don't take a trade this week. I think that I do believe that it'll probably be a very good trading week. And that's why I want you to not take a trade, because I still want to emphasize the discipline aspect of it, right? Don't take a single trade on the account. If you want to trade live, that's fine. Don't take it a trade on this account. I guarantee you there's going to be really good trades this week. Might not. Could be. That's not the point. The point is trying to create longevity for you in your trading, right? And trying to cover every aspect that we physically can and touch on certain things. If I can do it, you guys can do it, right? And yes, I've been doing it for years and it's something, whatever the case is. I wasn't, I would be doing you a disservice too if I was sitting here and had even 120,000, 130,000, 20%, 30%. I would be doing you a disservice, because even though it can be done, and probably, maybe in your trading career will be done, that's not the way you want to look at it. 1% a week, 4% a month, right? This is where you start, right? It's not necessarily where you want to be. You can go further than that. I can go further than that, right? But I wanted to give you guys a grounding start of showing you that it can be done 1% a week, understanding how to manage losses, how to manage wins in certain different, and plenty of different criterias and thresholds, right? Let me read the chat really quick. Okay. Yeah. All good there. Any questions on any of this though? Any questions here?
Yeah, I had something to ask you, Carson. You
Mhm.
spoke about how to handle losing and how to handle profit, and I think how to handle profit got to me this week.
Mhm.
I was literally less than 2,000 away from passing 150K account,
Mhm.
and that really got into me. I don't know why, and I lost the account. It is what it is, but I'm way better coming out of drawdown,
Mhm.
because that's like I can feel like, that okay, I'm not in a good position, so I have to really watch myself, watch the
Mhm.
setups, be really patient, be really picky. But when I'm in profit, I'm not as good.
Yeah, I've got a couple words for that. So it is harder, right? When you're in drawdown, you get in this mindset of you're paying a lot more attention. You're very susceptible, if you're at least a little disciplined, to follow the correct rules to get yourself out of it, right? Even, trying to get yourself out of drawdown the wrong way, that's beginner stuff. You do that enough to realize that that's not the way you do it. There's a certain way to get yourself out of drawdown. Holding profit, total different conversation, because when you are in profit, you're very quick to not pay as much attention. You kind of get caught on your heels sometimes because you're getting a little complacent, starting to feel a little easier, starting to look a little easier. And that's where you make the most mistakes. That's one thing. Two things could be an egotistical thing, right? Could be a risk thing. Could be a thing where as you continue to grow profit, your head gets a little too big, so you just start risking more. So those little tiny losses that you might take that are healthy now become a little bit more of a hit, because you just are a lot more conceited in the fact of your trading because you're on a streak or you're gaining profit. And Henry's not here today. He's doing some stuff outside of trading this weekend. But I'm going to speak for him a little bit because and I'm gonna kind of put him in the spotlight a little bit. He called me this week, and he asked if he could give me some advice. Henry is my right hand man, and he is going to be an amazing trader. And one of the first things that I noticed from him, obviously technicals were good. He understood what Michael teaches. His awareness of himself and the way he goes about his trades, both in loss and in profit. But he called me this week, and this is another reason why I haven't really talked to him over the past couple of days. He called me this week and he said, "Hey, I need your advice. I just had one of my biggest trades ever live, and I want your advice on how to handle it. I'm a little emotionally abrupt right now, and I would love your advice." Right? This is him coming to me off of one of his biggest and best trades, and I know that he'll probably share it with you guys. He recorded it, and the first thing I asked him was, did he follow his rules? Right? How did we get to this big trade? Right? Did we get to it by over leveraging, or did we follow your rules? Nope. He followed his rules. Right? On Thursday, he obviously was going short, and he had, in what would normally be, 20 to 30 handle move with partials in between. He had some tiny early on partials, but actually kind of full pulled the majority volume of his trade for like 50 to 60 handles. And that was a lot for him. It was like over 4 hours, and I'm not going to speak too much on it because I want him to take the spotlight on it. But he asked me what he could do to kind of do that, to just combat whatever it is. And I said, well, the first thing is, did you follow your rules? Yes. He followed his rules. Great. Right. That's good. That's something that you need to always ask yourself. The next thing I asked him or told him was, you need to withdraw something, right? Whether it's the entire trade, something out of the balance, something that you feel like you deserve, right? Make it real. Withdraw the money out of the account. Whatever that you feel like you need, want, deserve, whatever the case is, withdraw that. And then I said, hey, I want you to close your laptop, and I want you to, this was on Thursday at like 3 or 4 o'clock. I said, I want you to close your laptop, and I want you to give it to your girlfriend, and I want you to tell her to hide it from you until Friday at 5 o'clock. And I don't want you to text me. I don't want you to call me. I don't want you to, we usually get on these calls every other day, me and him, and we just kind of work on stuff for the community, and we were supposed to do it that night, and I said, we're not going to do it. I want you to give her the laptop, tell her that you're not going, no matter what you tell her, no matter what excuse, she does not give it back to you until Friday at 5 o'clock. And then for the rest of the day, I want you to just go outside. Don't try not to think about anything charts related, trading related, nothing. Whatever thoughts you might have, obviously they're good thoughts. Whatever thought, just let them pass. Let them be what they are. They're thoughts. Let them pass. Don't take too much weight to them. Try to get your mind off of it. I told him, hey, go work out, go on a hike, get outside, go have a beer, celebrate, whatever the case is. But until Friday at 5 o'clock, you should not have access to anything that will allow you to trade. And then after Friday at 5 o'clock, you'll obviously be in a lot more stable position. But then going into that, I said going into next week, I want you to, your first trade should be on demo, right? First trade should be on demo. And then going into your first couple live trades following that trade, a lot lesser risk, right? Quarter or half, whatever your normal risk is, and have very short thresholds, right? 5 handles, 10 handles. Get these very easy, measy wins, right? And then after you clear all that, just go right back to what you were doing, right? Because and know that expectation of a trade like that is not an every day occurring thing, every week occurring thing, right? He felt the need to really test his threshold as a trader. He did it. It paid him. But then he's in a whole new realm of emotions, right? Just because you can handle what a regular win is now doesn't mean you can handle a bigger win, right? You're always going to be tested with this new set of emotions, these new numbers that pop up, win or loss, right? And I think that that's something to think about. And with regards to holding that profit, keeping it, you need to know how to handle it, right? The first thing I told him was, one, pay yourself, right? If you have that opportunity, right, pay yourself, withdraw, whatever the case is, and don't trade or think about trading until you see that money come in your bank account, right? That's the first thing. But then second, if it's your phone, iPad, computer, whatever the case is, find a brother, a sister, a mom, a dad, and someone close to you, a friend, and don't even give yourself the chance to continue to trade for, the rest of the week or whatever. Give it to them and say, hey, no matter what I say, until this day at this time, don't give me this back and hide it from me. Keep it out of my face, right? That's something that is so beneficial for you, because if you just sit there and you have the access, you will do it. If you're a beginner enough and you're early enough and you, whatever the case is, you will do it. Might not be right away, maybe later in the day, maybe the next day, whatever the case is. If you have the access, you'll continue to trade. And odds are you're going to give a little bit of it back, if not all of it, until you get a lot more experience with it, right? Once you get a little bit more experience with it, even though the wins get bigger and bigger and bigger over time, and yes, there's these new emotions and they start to feel a lot different, or a lot heavier than they used to, you start to still just realize, you know what? You still follow the rules. You might get to a point where you don't need to give it to someone and have them hide it and keep it away from you. You might get to the point where you can just continue trading and not necessarily have that much thought in and around it. But when you're holding profit and you're trying to continue the equity curve higher, you have to realize it's a lot less in the charts and a lot more outside the charts. That's where it gets, that's where it completely flips, right? Completely flips. You cannot, you need to take less trades, risk a lot less, and completely go on the other side of the spectrum so you can start to weigh yourself out and equal yourself out. And I'll have him talk about it, and he'll kind of describe that to you guys. And I'm proud of Henry. It's well deserved, and he's doing what he should as a trader, and he's testing himself. But I'm also, and he knows this as well, I'm the first person to build his ego, and I'm the first person to knock it, right? And he knows that, and I'm not going to speak too much more on it because I want him to at least talk to you guys about it, talk you through the whole thing, and it doesn't matter what he made or what percentage, whatever the case is. It's just, it was a bigger trade than he's used to. He followed all his rules. How did he handle it, right? Before, during, and after. It's going to be great for him to explain that to you guys, because you don't realize how mentally draining it is, right? When you're trying to test your limits as a trader and hold for longer with more volume and all that stuff. It's very mentally straining. And then everything that happens after the fact is even double straining, because now you're just hit with all this adrenaline. And the second it goes away, you start to crave it more. Your body craves it, right? Your body's like, that was fun. Like, that was crazy. I want it again. I want it again. And you just kind of have to go back. And I told him on Thursday, I said, don't text me, don't call me until Friday at close. Sure enough, he called me Friday at close. He's already in a 10 times better mindset and area condition, just 24 hours, right? So I think a lot of the holding of profit, you're not going to always hold profit. You're not going to just always go straight up. There's going to be dips, but when you're in that profit, getting in the mindset of, okay, it immediately now is not the charts, it's on me. It's how I handle it, right? The profit's there. How do I handle it, right? You start being a lot more selective, maybe risking a little bit less, right? Getting yourself in a position to where you're not thinking about that, because then you get into a thing called loss aversion too, where, yeah, that win feels good, but loss is the pain of loss lasts 2 times to 4 times longer, right? And that's why when you win a trade, you feel really, really good, but it does go away pretty quickly, and then you want to feel it again, and then you keep trading. Rather than when you lose, it feels a lot worse. You forget about all the wins, you start really thinking about that loss, and it stays with you for a while. So it's these two different emotions that you're trying to figure out how to combat. But over time, just like anything else, you don't know how to deal with it until you get there. And really, when you get there the first couple times, you're going to fail. And that's immediately going to tell you, one, what not to do. It's just a matter of how good you are at listening to yourself and saying, you know what, I did that. I got here. I made this mistake. I'm not going to make it again. This is on me. This is now where it becomes more of me and myself and outside of the charts and handling it and knowing that I'm a good trader. I'm confident in my trading. I, I wouldn't be this confident if I didn't get to this position, but now I need to be a lot more conservative. I need to understand that I might need to take some time away from the charts, and I have plenty of time. There's always going to be another trade. I don't need to finish it here. Yes, you're on the little cusp of potentially getting that funded account. Guess what? Wait till next week. Right? Yes, it's Tuesday, it's Wednesday. You've got 2% more, and then wait till next week. Test yourself. Don't trade for the rest of the week. Don't try to get it all in one trade. Don't try to, you know what? Oh, this could be 2 more trades and I got it. No, it's not a matter of how many trades it's going to take. Do what you're supposed to do on the next trade. Follow your rules. Go through the motions. You get it? Great. You get a piece of it? Great. You lose? Great. On to just keep going. The closer you get to finishing these challenges, the more you're going to want to try to fit a square peg in a round hole. When in reality, you're supposed to be doing the same thing that you were doing when you started the account, right? You start to get antsy. It's the same thing as if when you're in a trade and price gets close to your terminus or a take partial, you start to get antsy. You're just like, I just want to be there. I just want it to hit it. I want to be done. I want to be done. You have to fight that. Axel, I know you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that because to be honest, I actually reached out to Henry last week, to ask him for advice because I took some losses and they were kind of hard. And now all of a sudden on Friday, I take that good win, and I was kind of glad about it, but it just fizzled out so fast. So it's like,
That's good.
you, I honestly don't know how to feel about it because I'm not. I feel like you should be kind of happy at the same time from reaching that high
Yeah.
achievement, but
But I think it's another thing too. Like, it's a maturity thing, right? So yes, you're kind of like, I should be happy, but I don't really feel that. A lot of it is probably because it's like if you were really, 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 really happy, it's kind of like it acting as like it was a surprise. I don't think subconsciously it was a surprise to you. And I also don't think that you get paid by passing a funded challenge. So I think you also subconsciously realize that yes, you can get happy, but nothing really has happened yet. The job's not finished. You haven't gotten paid from it. You haven't done anything there. So really, what is there to be happy about? Yes, if anything, you've got a little extra thing of armor and some confidence going forward. But as Kobe Bryant famously said, job's not finished. Right? You still got things to do. You still got trades to take, and you know, I think you're actually I don't think you're really supposed to be happy, right? I don't think you should feel anything. I don't think that emotions should really ever get in or have an effect with trading, even though they all do with all of us. I think that's why robots will always be and algorithms will always be better traders, because no matter what happens, if you were an algorithm and you did exactly what you just did and you passed it, you think it felt anything? No, like it's not going to do that. So I think one of it is, I think it's your subconscious telling you that it's not surprised that you did that because you knew deep down that you could do that, and now you're here and you did it. But then also subconsciously, you know that it really means nothing. It really means nothing.
At the end of the day, I think that professionally we should treat losses and wins with the same amount of emotions. I'm just because I haven't reached that level of like professional consistency. I'm also a bit weary of not, trying to chase those wins because I felt a little bit good, but I didn't really feel overall. So maybe I needed more, right? So that's just something that I've been meditating on for the past 2 days. I've been thinking about it, like, am I not excited about it for the right reasons, So I think that's something good to reflect on.
Yeah, and I think us as humans being traders, I think we should never really that's the whole fight. Like, how are we preparing ourselves to not let our emotions affect our rational decisions, right? At the end of the day, your emotions are just emotions. It's something you feel. They come and they go. They come and they go. But it's how do you get to a point where you don't let those emotions really affect your decision making, right? Yes, I feel something. I recognize and I'm aware I feel really good, but I also recognize and I'm aware that that feeling is going to go away. And if I use this feeling to create decisions, that can hurt me. Same thing. I feel really bad. I feel really fearful, right? But this too shall pass. This feeling is just temporarily, and I won't feel this way forever. So I cannot let whatever I think I feel I need to do have that hurt me when it comes to my decision making, right? It's a whole game of like, how do you not have your emotions affect your decision making, right? As you start to have these emotions, not have them affect your decisions, right? That's the whole game that we're trying to play here. Um, and I think it starts by like what you're dealing with right now. It's this paradigm shift of, damn, this is like a big accomplishment. I thought that I would feel a certain way, but your body's smart enough to realize that what that does is create harm potentially with regards to your decision making, because you've probably had something in your trading where you felt like this before and you went and made decisions based on that feeling and it hurt you. So now your body's subconsciously telling you, hey, yes, I've been close to here. I've had these feelings before, but I immediately know that if I make decisions based on it, it could hurt me. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to weigh this accomplishment too heavy, right? I'm going to just kind of keep it a little on the back end, on the burner side of things. Even though I know it's great and it's good, I'm not going to amplify it and hold weight like I used to do it, because when I did that and I allowed that weight to flow in, it then correlated into my decision making, and then that hurt me. If that makes
100%.
sense.
100%. I agree with that.
Yeah. Anybody have any other questions? I know it's we're kind of coming up on the time, but you know, I will not be here next weekend. I'm actually going to a football game out of town. I know me and Henry have kind of been playing flip flop on these Sunday calls, but we always make sure that one of us is at least there. And I am going to be there on on the midweek review. I just won't be here next Sunday, and you know, it just happens to be mine and Henry's schedule. They just haven't been really aligning too much over the past couple of weeks, but that will obviously kind of settle back in, and we'll be back together on a Sunday call shortly. If not, obviously not next week, but potentially, hopefully, the week before. Still will be in the midweek review. Still will be dropping my analysis, all that good stuff, and you know, just keep on doing what you're doing. You know, don't do any training exercises this week besides obviously just the journal and reflect. Like really, 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 really reflect, right? We've had 10 weeks of assignments, right? Where did you start? Where are you right now? And what could you have done better? Look through all your trades and see what was it? Was it psychological? Was it technical? Because really now what we're going to do is me and Henry are going to kind of go in and try to really reflect with you one-on-one, and kind of say, hey, you know, here's the feedback you gave us. Here's our opinion. And you can take it how it is, because it's simply just an opinion. But you know, I think when we started this, I think a lot of people, they trade for the number, right? I want to get this account to this number. I want to get this a week. And I think you really don't. And one thing that really helped my trading a lot was just taking it trade by trade. Yes, I've got a plan. Yes, I've got rules, percentages to follow, all this, that, and the other. But really, I'm just focused on the next trade. Just focused on the next trade. I'm not looking forward to the end of the month and what percentage I might be at, or the end of the week or what percentage I might be at. Like, I didn't know what I was going to be at when I first started this, right? I just took it trade by trade, exercise by exercise. I never overlooked anything. I just was kind of always in the moment and doing what I needed to do, keeping my focus there. Because the more you take your focus elsewhere, the less you're taking it, the more you're taking it away from the now. And that's where you need to stay, is in the now. Any other questions, comments, or concerns before I wrap it up? Anything? Alrighty. Well, I really want to encourage you guys to take this week. Like I said, there is no training exercises, or no trading in the training exercises. But take this week and do a lot of reflecting, right? What are some things that you can really start to put in place this week, outside of trading, inside of trading? What are the things that you're just not, you know what? Yes, I have a trading plan. Okay, well, is it written down? Yes, I have a trading model, Carson. Okay, well, is it written down? Yes, I have a routine and a schedule. Traders, there's a direct correlation between successful traders and their weekly and daily routines. That's it. All right, what's your daily, weekly routine? Do you do it every day? How quick are you and how easy are you to shy away from it, right? So this week, I really want you guys to do a lot of reflecting and really have this week be like a shift in, you know what? This isn't always going to be about building in my technicals, because really you should start to see that even when you do get good with the technicals, if you're not set up to succeed outside of trading, even if you do succeed in trading, something's going to leak into your trading and kind of cause you to not get the results you want to get. So I want this week to be a reflection of like, okay, you know what, going forward, if you haven't been taking it seriously, take it seriously. Right? This is my model. This is my plan. This is my daily routine. This is what I need to do every single day. This is what I'm doing at this time, this time, this time, this time. I'm going to schedule my time. I'm going to respect my time. I'm not going to waste my time. Right? I'm going to take this stuff seriously, because if you don't, you'll never get the results. I'm telling you right now. Even if you 50%, 75%, 90%, you're not going to get the full results out of it. You're going to be susceptible to errors even following, right? You have to be fully committed if you actually really want to do this, right? What areas do you need to get better at? What areas do you not need to get better at and you just need to stay consistent with, right? Are you at a point in your trading where you feel complacent, right? What are those limits that you want to test, right? And like, that's the thing. I put that vision board in the forum for you guys to hold yourself accountable. I want X, Y, and Z out of trading. It could be an account. It could be a consistent percentage made a week. It could be a car, a house, a vacation, having 3 straight months of utilities paid for. Not a single person has even reached into that vision board yet and posted anything. I encourage you to post something in there. Not for everyone else. That's not for everyone else. It's for you. It's for you to manifest things. It's not anything more than that. What do you want out of trading? Write it down. Put it out there. It's an area where you can put it out. And if it's all up here, it doesn't get out into the universe. The universe might not see it or hear it. You can think this stuff is crazy, but it's all crazy to a lazy mind. Like, you have to put it out there. It could be the simplest thing. It could be the most crazy thing in the world. Put it out there, right? And don't expect people to, if people respond to it, comment, great. If they don't, fine. That's not there. That's there for you to, it's there to sit in the universe, remind you why you work as hard as you do and why you're so disciplined to do what you need to do. But then when the day comes, when you do get it, whatever it is, when you do get it, you can reply with a picture, screenshot, whatever it is, of whatever you had manifested weeks, months, days ago, years ago. And then that in itself right there shows the next person, damn, they in October, on the 4th week of October in 2023, they posted that they wanted a $200,000 funded account. And in February of 2024, they responded with a screenshot of the certificate. Not only did they do that, but then in another post, they said that they wanted to get $10,000 of withdrawals from a funded account. And by March of 2024, they responded again with that. Right? It sounds crazy, but you have to realize that stuff is not for what it looks like or what it is or who else is going to see it. It's for you and the universe. That's it. And actually try it. Because that's the thing. It's going to sit there, and it's going to sit there, and it's going to sit there, and it's going to sit there until you do something about it. And it doesn't have to happen overnight. It won't happen overnight. It won't happen next week. Right? But even if you said, I want 1%, I want to do 1% for 10 straight weeks, just something like I just did here, 1% a week for 10 straight weeks. And every single week you post under that manifestation post that you've had in the vision board, you post 1% screenshot, 1% screenshot, 1% screenshot, whatever it is. There's so many different things. It could be inside of trading or outside of trading, right? Utilize that. Don't be shy. You're not here for them, right? D isn't here for Alan. Ismail isn't here for Axel. My dad's not here for Kat. Kat's not here for my dad. You guys aren't here for me. You're here for you, right? And just like showing up every week onto these calls and getting just the little tiny things that you might get, or maybe you just like hanging out, that's fine. But stuff like you don't, I'll say right now, Alan, Axel, and Kat and Ismail, those four right there are probably the most active individuals I've ever seen in any community I've ever had with regards to doing the training exercises and joining the calls, right? And something that I'm not going to talk about right now, but it's something that we're going to talk about in the next coming weeks. I want Henry to be with me, but we're going to start having, incentives of people that are really active in the community, right? Student of the months, not student because we're all students, trader of the months. And that's not best performance. It's the most activity. The person who really is sitting there and showing, yes, I really, really want this stuff. I'm going to be active. I'm going to be joining the calls, right? If I can't make the live calls, I'm going to be responding on the comments on the recordings. I'm going to do the training exercises. I'm going to be thorough about it. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to post my analysis in the forum. Being active, getting your questions answered. Those individuals, we're going to try to figure out a way to reward that, right? Even though it shouldn't be like that, and you should just be here because of the hunger to get better and have a better life. But still, we're going to highlight one person a month probably, right? And I'm not going to say what it is or what we're going to do for them or whatever the case is, but just sitting on this call, just watching the calls, yeah, you might get a little bit better. You might understand a little bit more. You might understand what a SIBI is or a BISI is, and you might start to get the idea of it. But in reality, you have no idea until you start dealing with what Axel's dealing with, or you start dealing with who I don't know if it was Alan or Ismail or whoever who had that $150,000 account and lost it, or what Henry's dealing with, right? With the big trade he had this week. You can sit here and you can listen all you want, but until you start getting in those shoes and that form of the trading is when you really start to learn. Like, you're not going to get anywhere just by sitting here and listening to me talk and us chart up, right? For 4 to 5 years, I was, especially the first 3, I didn't have a community. One, I had a laptop with a monitor hooked up to it and a printer. And the idea that I knew that I was going to get good at this stuff. Every week, I would print stuff out. I would print charts out. I would stick them on my wall. I had patterns, retail ass patterns, head and shoulders, all this stuff, all this stupid stuff. I would put them on my ceiling at night. So when I would sit there and I would just be looking at them, getting them to kind of form, even though that's not the right type of patterns or whatever the case is. I guarantee you the reason I understand the stuff I do is because of how much effort I put into it. I still put in effort. I'm still here every week when I can, every Wednesday, every Sunday, every training exercise. 6 years later, I still do this stuff. I still spend hours a week by myself on these charts, looking, watching, charting up, looking at what happened last week, doing all. I still do it because I love it. Like, that's another thing to ask yourself. Like, do you actually love trading? Like, I can tell you with a burning passion, wholeheartedly, that I love trading. Yes, I love what it can do for me and financially and what it can do for my time, but I love it for two main reasons. One, the person you start to become, right? I want to be a millionaire, not for the $1 million. I want to be a millionaire because of the person that I will have to create to get to be a millionaire, to get that $1 million, right? I want to be a millionaire, not for the $1 million and what the $1 million can do for me, but theoretically, the person that I have to create and become to be a millionaire. Because the $1 million can come and go, but that person that I build stays forever. So keep that in the back of your mind. Like, the reason I love trading is because the person it has created out of me. The way I look at life, the way I look at myself living in this thing called life. I love the idea that, yes, I can, with these two eyes, sit there and understand price action enough for a certain time of day, on a certain day of week. I can sit there and I can dial in and understand 9 times out of 10 what's going to unfold. And I love that I can do that because 99% of people can't. And people ask me about charts or stocks or how to get started. Honestly, I tell people don't get started. Don't. You have to be a different individual to get really good at this stuff. You have to be weird. You got to be weird. You got to be obsessed with it differently than you would if you were just sitting here and trying to just trade to get by. Yes, you'll get that eventually. Probably not if you don't really love this shit and you don't really have the curiosity of what price is going to do this week based on last week's closure. Do you really care? Are you really curious about what actually happens? Or are you just trying to figure out how to make a buck? Something to think about. Axel, I'll read your comment. I'll be honest, I was very frustrated months ago until I heard you or Henry on Kit's Twitter space talking about how the community you're about to start, because I never had anyone talk about the mental struggles associated with trading as well as the technicals. I had my bud and we were doing it together, but we didn't have someone that already knows for a fact what they're doing. Obviously, Michael's fantastic, but I can't ask him any specific questions. Maybe my question is something he doesn't even bother to touch on, but we have it. I think that's another reason too, is like, I didn't have that either. I couldn't reach out to Michael. Like, I'm doing this because I'm trying to be the person that I needed. Because looking back the past 6 years, yeah, it was fun and we're here, but it fucking sucked and it was lonely as shit. And I think that I would have been way better off and had a learning curve that was so much shortened and not have 6 years, now be 3 years, if I had something like this. So the reason why I'm building all this stuff, quite frankly, isn't for you. It's for me. Selfishly, it is for me to give my subconscious a pat on the back that says, you know what? Yeah, you might not necessarily be getting what you should have or wanted 6 years ago, but now you're giving the other people opportunities, and through that you can live through that and find fulfillment. That's fine. That's all I need. But the thing is I can tell you right now, if you're not doing what Kat and Alan and Ismail and Axel are doing each week, you're not really going to grow in the way you're wanting to grow. You're not going to get the results in the timeline you're going to want to get results in. The longer you put off doing this or doing that, doing this or doing that, is the longer you put off getting this and getting that. Because if you're new to this and you haven't even really traded live yet, good luck. Because you're hearing us talk about all the psychological stuff, but it's not going to resonate with you 100%. It will not resonate with you. It might sound cool, and yeah, these are cool conversations, but they don't sit deeply with you if you do not know or feel what that feels like to have something like that occur, whether it's a win or a loss or how to deal with that stuff. You do not know. And quite frankly, the conversation only goes so far because, yes, I read books and heard people talk about how to handle wins and losses before I went live and traded. And then guess what? I handled wins and losses terribly. Just because I read a book or listened to a conversation didn't mean that I was going to automatically start to learn how to handle things. Doesn't matter what age you are, doesn't matter where you're from or how much money you have. It does not matter. It is all the same underlying thing. You will not know what it feels like or how to respond to it until you are in there, in the moment, and then fail. You have to fail. You will fail. The very first couple times that you get in here and you do this stuff real deal with your money, hard-earned money, you will fail. And then at that moment, I can start to tell whether or not you're actually going to be a trader. Because it's either, and I've had so many people get to this point where they spend so much time, effort, they put their hard-earned money in and then they lose it. What do you do then? And I'll tell you whether or not you'll probably stick around for however long you really want to, and you'll actually figure out how to do this stuff called trading. Right? I would say 7 out of 10 people reach to that point and just say, nope, this isn't for me. I can't do it. I can't deal with it. I just worked so hard for this money and I just lost it based on my decisions and whatever the case is. Right? But it's that person that gets to that point, fails, and just goes right back to the drawing board. All right, I got to study harder. I got to do this. I got to do that. It'll take some time for me to get more money in the account and figure it out, whatever the case is, or whether it's a funded challenge, whatever. I'm just going to keep on doing it. That's where you really start to figure out whether or not this is for you. And really, quite frankly, it technically is for everyone, but it really isn't. Because people can always, 10 out of 10 people will get to that point. 7 out of 10 people will get to that point, fail, and then just say, nah, that was too much. I just lost that money too much, too quickly, whatever the case is. You just kind of blow up. And 10 out of 10 people actually blow up at first. But it's how you respond. Right? Do you go back? Are you phased? Are you flinched? Because the amount of times that I've failed in this stuff, seriously, it's probably more than almost everyone here on this call. Maybe not. I don't know. The amount of times I've failed, and then the amount of times I've thought about quitting, 0. Never thought about quitting trading, ever. Sometimes it was just a delay on when I could really start to dive back in and start trading again because I needed to save up money. But I never thought about quitting, ever. From like the get-go, I don't know why, but from the get-go, I knew I was going to be a trader. So when you go into this next week, do some reflecting. Figure out what you need to do and some things that you need to set up to get you to where you want to be. Other than that, that's it, guys. I appreciate you guys for hopping on. It is 12 o'clock. Thank you for listening if you listened to that rant. I will upload the recording once it's done, get that out to anyone who kind of missed it. And let me think. Trade safe this week. See you guys on Wednesday. I will not be here this upcoming weekend, but I will be here on Wednesday for the midweek review, and I'll be tweeting and posting some stuff on socials and in the forum this week too. So trade safe. Hopefully indices continue to go lower. Look out for that retracement, and hopefully dollar finally starts to go higher and kind of get out of that consolidated holding pattern. Other than that, I appreciate you guys. Be safe. and happy Sunday.